Добрый день, уважаемые участники! Сегодня я нахожусь в городе Мирном, в школе номер 12 с углубленным изучением английского языка. И мы предоставляем вам видеопрезентацию для учителей английского языка в рамках профильной смены Регионального центра по выявлению и поддержке одарённых детей в Республике Саха, Якутия. Организованная данная смена Малой академии наук Республики Саха, Якутия. Alright, let's get started. So, dear teachers, today I want to present and want to share some information, some ideas with you on how to make your lessons a wow for your students, so that students want to come to your lessons, so that students missing your lessons. I'm going to share some practical solutions and also some theoretical things. So, first of all, my talk is based on the book which is called Teach Like a Pirate, which rated a New York Times bestseller. So this book was written for teachers by Dave Burgess, and this is quite an informal book, but it shares some insights on how to become a better and a more motivational teacher. So the basic idea of the book is the question by the author. Let's ask this question to each other, to ourselves, sorry. If your students didn't have to be there, would you be teaching to an empty room? If it was voluntary for students to come to your lessons, would you be sitting in a classroom full of students or in an empty classroom? So the answer seems to be quite obvious for all of us, because very often we know students prefer streaming services, they prefer online games, they prefer social networking websites rather than us teachers in the classrooms. So how to make sure that we are as exciting an element for our students as all other competitors of the modern world? So, Teach Like a Pirate is actually an abbreviation. Pirate is an abbreviation of the 6 words. P for passion, I for immersion, R for rapport, A for ask and analyze, T for transformation, and E for enthusiasm. So these basically are 6 words which have to be the ingredients of us teachers in order to be an exciting source of inspiration and learning for our students. So, let's ask a question. Why a pirate? Why a pirate? Because we know that it's the spirit of a pirate that is daring, adventurous, and willing to set forth into uncharted territories with their crew. So we become captains of our ships. So our lesson becomes a ship where we are the teachers, are the captains, and our students are the crew, and we want to explore the territory. In our case, this is the territory of the English language. So, and there are 3 different types of passion educators have. So the first letter of pirate is P for passion. So we can be passionate about 3 different things. About the content within your subject matter, within English. What are you passionate about? My personal passion lies with grammar. I know grammar sounds boring, but I love grammar. I love teaching grammar, and I like to present it in an interesting, in a practical way, rather than boring and theoretical. I know some other teachers are passionate about other aspects of English, be it writing, be it speaking, be it some idioms. So, and if these things are the passions for us, we need to be personal about this. We need to instill passion about these things onto our students, because this is where our energy is involved, and this is where we can actually share this energy with our students about these particular areas of our subject, English per se. The second passion can be professional passion. Within your profession, what are you passionate about? What is it about being an educator that drives you? So, being a teacher, what are the things that make you still continue to be a teacher? Because personally, I remember when I was a school student, I had lots of ideas of what to become. I wanted to become a flight attendant, I wanted to become a sculptor, I wanted to become a beekeeper, I wanted to become a medical doctor, a journalist, a translator. And now, being a teacher, I realize that all of those childhood dreams I can realize just being a teacher. Because a teacher is a waiter, he serves his students, he organizes events, tea parties, picnics for the students. A teacher is a medical doctor, a teacher is a psychologist, a teacher is a sculptor of the students' lives, a teacher is a shepherd, is a beekeeper, because his class, his students are his beehive, and so we are the leaders for them. So by having become a teacher, I understood that all of those different jobs that I dreamt of in the past, they have realized in this one single profession. And I understand this, and this is the passion about being a teacher, about this profession, which I can instill on my students. Because I know that in the modern world, the teaching profession is not as prestigious as some other jobs. But we, by our own example, show that this is prestigious profession, that this is a worthwhile profession, so that our students do want to become teachers in the future, and we have the replacement, and our system of education does not suffer the lack of teachers in the future rather than the competition. We choose among 5 candidates rather than we have the lack and we don't know where to find a teacher for the school. The third passion, is the personal passion. Outside of your profession, what are you passionate about? Bringing those passions into a classroom, into a lesson, personalizes you with your students. Art, music, cinema, travel. So all those things that you read about, that you watch, all those things that are constructive, that you know about, you can share with the students. You can show to the students in the best light, so that students start exploring these things by themselves, and students start loving these things themselves, and you build this bond with the students on this personal level. Because after all, we do not teach English, we teach students. So it all should be personal about what we do. So we should not be a teacher without a face, a teacher that the students know nothing about. We must be persons for our students. Students must know some things about life, some basic personal things about life, our interests, our hobbies, our main events in life. That's why this personal note is very important. So sharing some photos from your last trips, from your last holidays, explaining and telling stories of your adventures, of the interesting encounters that you have had in your life. It will all enrich your students' lives with emotions, and it will all make you not just a teacher for them, but a personal coach, a personal mentor. The second principle of teach like a pirate is immersion. Immerse in something. So what is the idea? Your students deserve your full attention. They know when you're not fully there in the classroom and engaged with them. If you're not engaged, why should they be? If you're not engaged, if you're not excited about what you're teaching, why should the students be? So, and a simple example, a simple illustration of that is the swimming pool example. So we can see that a swimming instructor, in order to teach a young learner to swim, he will not be standing at the side. He will be swimming, he will be touching, he will be holding hands with the student so that to teach him to swim. So he will be fully immersed in his lessons. He will not be sitting with the phone and tell, now you do this, now you do that, or doing some other things. He will be fully, physically, emotionally, personally, eye contact with them, together with them in the same swimming pool. So is us. We should always be immersed, fully 100% immersed with the student. I have recently come across such a mistake that we teachers tend to make. We as teachers sometimes may use our time incorrectly, so nobody takes phones from the teachers, right? And sometimes we tend to message during the lesson. We tend to look up things during the lesson. Usually when the students are busy doing something, this is not right. When the students are busy doing things, we should be busy with the students. We should be busy seeing what they're doing, how they're doing, preparing for the next step of the lesson, but never stealing these precious 40-45 minutes of their time for our personal interests. That's why recently I know how distracting these devices can be. I tend to leave my smartphone in my office and go to a lesson without my smartphone, because I know as long as I don't have my smartphone with me, I can demand the same from my students. I can honestly tell them, I don't have my smartphone on me, you shouldn't have your smartphone on you during the whole class. So we should be demanding to ourselves first and then demanding to the students, so we are fully immersed. Then the third step, the third principle of being a pirate is rapport. So what is rapport? Rapport is positive relationships. Positive relationships, a French word. So you need to have this rapport with the students if you want them engaged in the learning process. Most students misbehave out of boredom, being overwhelmed with work that they are not capable of doing, or a lack of connection with the lesson. Get to know your students, what interests them, and use those interests in your lesson. So this comes from the first principle as well, and from the second principle, when we personalize everything, personalize the material, personalize the learning, the examples that we give. When we tell stories, we do not tell stories from movies that they might not know, from stories that they have never heard, but from our own stories, from the movies that the students know. So this will all make a strong connection to the students. Another one is ask and analyze, the reflection stage. Do we ask ourselves a question after each and every lesson? How did our lesson go? We know this famous phrase, I teach the best when I'm not observed. But suddenly, when I'm being observed by somebody, my lessons are not as good. But do we, when we are not observed, and very often we are not observed, we are not given feedback on our lessons, so we should be the feedback givers to ourselves. So we should reflect and ask ourselves, how could have we improved this lesson so it's even more effective than it was in our opinion? Did every student get the information that we need, that we wanted? Because after all, our job is never done, is never fully done, unless every student has learned. And if we have a group of 15 students and 10 students have learned, have mastered, but 5 students have not quite understood, so our job is never finished there. So we need to think of creative ways, additional ways, how to make them wonder, how to make them want and drive. The next step is transformation. So teachers are the transformers of life. You must be remarkable, you must be exceptional and different, that people will talk about you in a good way. The goal isn't about your ego, it's about effectiveness. So when you tell your students what qualifications you have, when you tell your students what courses you have done, what diplomas you have received, it's not about you being proud of yourself, it's not about you showing off, but it's about you showing them your professionalism and your professionalism and your qualification, that you have the right to teach them. You have to have the right to stand here and be with them and lead them. And you, by showing these diplomas and telling them stories from your professional development, you show that you are an effective teacher and they trust you. So they have come to a professional, not just an amateur. Always have the destination in sight, set the goal and map out a plan of how to get your students where they need to be. So in the modern pedagogy, there is such a term as the backwards design. So we do not begin our course with the introduction of what we will be doing, rather than what the students will have achieved by the end of the course. We do not tell students at the beginning of a writing lesson, look at this text. What can you see in this text? But at the beginning of the writing lesson, we show them the task. We show them, this is the writing task that you will have written by the end of today's lessons. And they see, and they see the final product, they understand what their destination is, and you tell them, and now we will learn ways how to make you do that, how to help you do that. So passion, immersion, rapport, ask, analyze, transformation. As Dave Berger said, teaching is no longer about relaying the content standard, it's about transforming lives. So we do not relay the content that we know and put this in the minds, in the brains of our students. Students can do this by themselves. So we facilitate their learning. We organize ways in which students can want and can do and know the ways of how to achieve things. And the last thing about this topic is enthusiasm. The last letter of the acronym PIRATE. So nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. A quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. So in order for students to be engaged in the classroom, the teacher must be enthusiastic, passionate about what they are teaching. In return, the students will feed off that and be enthusiastic about the lesson as well. What are the ways to promote enthusiasm? Think about how to change your physiology. Do you want to be powerful, confident? Try to move and act the way you want to come across. So when the students come to a lesson, they know that you're the boss, that you're their guest, that this is your territory and they should behave accordingly. Focus on the positive. Do not let negative aspects in the classroom change your mind. Focus on the positives and feed off. This is what empowers them. You know that very often we teachers, we tend to notice the negatives and we tend to forget the positives. No, we should always try to find what are the positive things that my student has. Even the worst student in our opinion, the weakest student in our opinion, there are many more positive things about him, and we should try to find this and focus on these things. Try to model your enthusiasm. It will rub off on a student and encourage engagement in the lesson. Ultimately, excellent teachers begin with having passion for what is being taught and end with enthusiasm while instructing the lesson. Thank you very much for your attention.